Thanks so much. Let's talk some more about this. With me now, Jason Johnson, politics editor for TheRoot.com and professor of political science and communications at Morgan State University. And David Paleologos is the director of the Suffolk University Political Research Center. Welcome to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning. So Jason, the big news for Mr. Trump does not stop with just these new CNN polls. The campaign just announced the support of some 88 retired military officials. Now, some of the names on that list raise eyebrows. The New York Times reports that one filed court documents accusing President Obama of not being born in the United States and challenging his ability to be president. Another labeled the fight against extremists as a religious one between a Christian nature and an idol of Islam. Still, though, 88 signed the letter. Your thoughts?
I mean, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people who have served in the armed forces, and who they endorse is not necessarily an indicator as to whether or not that person will be the most capable commander-in-chief that we have. But I will say this, Carol, this is the overall thing. Donald Trump in the last 2 weeks has actually started to put together something resembling a presidential campaign. He is giving speeches. He's showing up where he needs to show up. He's having people come out and give him endorsements. The problem is he's still really behind on the ground game. He still doesn't have a lot of people in Florida. He still doesn't have a lot of people in Ohio. But at least he's making an attempt, which is something that should make Republicans happy.
Okay, and I want to delve deeper into this poll, David, because I know that's your specialty, because there are so many contradictions in this poll. For example, terror and foreign policy. So Mr. Trump has a 6-point lead on Clinton when it comes to who would better handle terrorism. On the other hand, Mrs. Clinton has a 16-point lead on the topic of foreign policy. So how do you reconcile that?
Well, you have Donald Trump, who's been talking about ISIS pretty much in every speech, and with the kind of terminology of drawing line in the sand, and we're going to wipe out ISIS. And so the people who are independents in this race are looking to that, and that's what you're seeing in your poll. In the Suffolk poll, we saw kind of the same thing. You know, we see in terms of national security, Hillary Clinton was leading in that number also. So voters are differentiating between the two.
So foreign policy is different than fighting ISIS?
You know, I mean, he's taken a more aggressive, combative viewpoint. And foreign policy is very detailed. It's very technical, and people don't see Donald Trump as detailed or technical right now. They see him as potentially drawing a line in the sand, being strong against ISIS, but the devil's in the details.
Okay, so here's another contradiction, and I'll pose this one to you, Jason. This is another contradiction. When asked who is the stronger leader, registered voters picked Trump 50 to 42%. But Clinton comes out on top by a 5-point margin when asked who is better able to handle the responsibilities as commander-in-chief. So why is that?
I think, Carol, because the split that we're seeing in the poll is the split that Americans are sort of experiencing really for the last 15 or 20 years. I remember polls in 2004 that would ask the question, do you believe in the war in Iraq or do you believe in the war on terror? Well, if you think that those two things are connected, that's completely different than if you thought attacking Iraq had nothing to do with what happened on 9/11. And that's what we're seeing here. Those Americans who want a strong, bombastic kind of leader, they think Donald Trump is the better option. Those Americans who want a leader who makes sense and seems more capable and secure and confident in what they're doing, they want Hillary Clinton. And I've always felt like this election is going to be very, very close in the popular vote. I don't think it's going to be that close in the Electoral College.
Interesting. And I'd like to just put this... Oh, go ahead, David.
No, I was just going to say, in our poll, we watched the number of people who don't trust both or who are unfavorable to both. According to our poll, 1 in 6 likely voters will go to the polls today with an unfavorable opinion of both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Now, that slightly favors Trump right now, at least in that subset of voters, because the trustworthiness issue seems to be more deep-rooted than the temperament issue. And again, it'll be the independents who decide.
Right, and among independents, and I'm just going to grab my sheet here, Clinton seems to be in trouble with independents. Right. So according to the CNN ORC poll, Mr. Trump does better with independents, 49% to 29%.
And I think that's what you're seeing in the CNN poll, yes.
Okay, so just a final question, because I do want to put this poll into perspective. So Clinton, it seems to me, Clinton did not lose support to Donald Trump.
Right.
Trump gained support. So what does that tell us, Jason?
Well, what it tells us is that, number one, you had a lot of people who didn't want to support Trump, but now the Republicans are finally coming around. The good news for Republicans is many of those never Trump people are coming around and they're supporting him. Independents are coming around and saying he's an okay idea. Independents, also young ones, happen to be going to Gary Johnson. The good news for Hillary Clinton is that, like you said, she hasn't really lost that much. But I'd say overall, everybody has to be cautious about this kind of poll, because any poll that shows someone leading with less than 48, 49% of the vote, you've got way too many people still saying they're undecided, and undecideds tend to break for the incumbent party.
All right, I have to leave it there. Jason Johnson, David Paleologos. Actually, stick around, because I'm going to ask you about the trust question some more in the next block of Newsroom. Also still to come.